Should you bring a real camera like this one when you're on vacation? Let's talk about it on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. Today's question comes from Frank B, and he wants to know, Hi David, I'm taking a golf trip to beautiful Monterey, California, and my second favorite hobby is photography. Convince me that I need to bring my Canon R5 instead of just using my phone. Thanks. Well, thank you, Frank, for sending that in. Now, while I don't personally play golf, I have photographed a lot of it over the years, and I can imagine it's just another level of beautiful on that course in Monterey. Now, you're asking a great question because every photographer, including myself, has faced this exact dilemma at some point. You're going on a personal trip that's not a photography job, and you have to decide if it's worth it to lug pro-level bodies and lenses with you on vacation. So to help you out, I'm going to approach this from a couple different angles. The first is to go over the pros and cons of bringing gear in the first place, and then I'll talk about some specific options to consider if you've decided to bring a real camera with you. First, is it worth it to bring gear on vacation? What do bodies like that Canon R5 do for you beyond what you can capture with your phone? Well, the most obvious benefit is lens flexibility. Your phone has a few fixed focal lengths baked in, and while they've gotten remarkably good, you can't put a 100 to 500 millimeter zoom on it to photograph a hawk in the distance or swap to a fast prime lens for a low light shot of the coastline at dark. With a full system at your disposal, you can bring whatever glass fits the trip. Also, I do think it's fair to say that an optical zoom is just better quality than a digital zoom. Most phone camera telephoto modes are really just cropping into the sensor, and they're using software to fill in the gaps. A real telephoto lens is collecting photons of light. The difference is significant, especially if you're photographing your golf buddy teeing off across the fairway. Computational photography can't quite replicate that just yet. Now beyond that, there's low light performance. A larger image sensor can capture more light than a small phone sensor. That means cleaner images at higher ISOs and more latitude when the light gets tricky. Indoor shots and sunsets are some of the times when you want to have that kind of gear available. And then there's just the simple matter of control. Shutter speed, aperture, depth of field, all of those things are in your hands. Do you want to have a silky smooth ocean with a long exposure? How about a shallow depth of field that separates a cypress tree from the background? Phones can do it with some computational photography tricks, but I personally don't think it looks quite as good as doing it with optics. Real cameras are also going to give you the option of using very high quality RAW files. You might be capturing moments that you can't recreate. If you nail the shot but the exposure is too far off or the white balance is wrong, a RAW file is going to give you the latitude to fix it in post. A JPEG or a HEIF file from a phone is already processed and compressed, and there's really only so much you can do with it. That Canon R5 can shoot RAW files, and that can be important when the shot really matters. And there's also something else to think about that's maybe a little bit less tangible. When you have a dedicated camera in your hands, you start to see differently. You notice the light, you pay attention to the light, you think about composition. It makes you slow down and actually look at what's in front of you. The phone, it's great for a quick snapshot, but a camera can make you more present photographically, and it changes how you engage with a location. So with all of that going for it, why would you ever leave the big kit at home? Well, of course, there are some obvious practical considerations. The first is weight and bulk. A pro body with a couple of lenses, extra batteries, memory cards, and a bag to carry it all in, that's going to add up fast. That's extra weight on the plane, it's extra stuff to keep track of, and depending on where you're going, something else to worry about getting lost or stolen. It has been said that the best camera is the one you have with you. Your phone is always in your pocket, and that's a good thing. And if you're not actually going to bring the camera out when you shoot, then don't waste the time or energy traveling with that big gear. You also need to consider that spending more time taking pictures could inconvenience the other people on your trip. Are they okay to stand around while you stop every few minutes to compose a photo? Are they happy waiting while you swap lenses or dig through your camera bag? Of course, it does depend on who you're with and how independent they are, but if it's a loved one or close friends who want to spend their time with you, you might cause some unwanted tension throughout the trip. I'll personally never forget a family vacation that we took to Las Vegas when I was a kid. I was just getting into photography and I wanted to take pictures of the lights on the Vegas Strip. Huge thanks to my poor mother who stood outside with me on the median in the middle of the road while I struggled to capture the lights on an unusually cold night in Vegas. Now, of course, she's my mother and she was a really good sport about it, but I'm not sure everyone's travel companions are going to be quite as patient as she was. So before you pack the full kit, it's worth having an honest conversation both with yourself and maybe with whoever's traveling with you about how much of your trip you want to spend being a photographer versus just being on vacation. Hey, quick sidebar, if you've got a photography question like this one that Frank sent in and you want me to answer it, just go to askdavidbergman.com and submit the form right there on the site. If you want to keep up with everything I'm doing, thedavidbergman.com has links to all of my socials, my free email list, a ton of educational videos, and a few discount and affiliate links. And if you're enjoying this video, please hit like, subscribe to Adorama's YouTube channel, and tap that bell icon for notifications. It really helps us to keep making free photography content for you every single week right here on Adorama TV. Okay, so let's say that you've decided that yes, you want to bring a real camera with you. Now what? Well, if you already own a lot of gear and you don't want to buy anything new, you have two options. The first is just to bring everything so you never have to second guess what you brought. If you've got a lot of gear, you probably want to pack it in a dedicated camera bag so you have all your bodies, lenses, flashes, and accessories in one place. That's going to give you every option available no matter what situation comes up. Or you can go the bare minimum route. One body and one or two lenses. Exactly which lenses to bring depends on what you're photographing, but a versatile zoom that covers a wide range of situations is going to be your best friend. If you aren't shooting in really low light, you can get a lot of range from something like the Canon RF 24 to 240 f4 to 6.3. That's a lightweight 10x zoom that is going to save some space and weight in your camera bag. You also might want to bring a small flash if your camera doesn't have one built in, although depending on what you're planning to shoot, you might not need one at all. If you're open to buying something new, look for a smaller mirrorless body like the Canon R10 or the R50. These cameras are surprisingly good even for pro photographers. They shoot RAW and use the same RF lenses as the bigger bodies, but they're significantly lighter and more compact, which means they'll probably fit in your existing bag without taking over. I own this R50. I love this thing. I use it with the RF 16mm f2.8 as my personal travel camera for exactly this reason. It's a super small setup that's easy to carry around. It even kind of fits in my pocket, so no problem with this thing. Now, of course, no matter how much you bring, don't forget accessories like memory cards and extra batteries. They're so small, but make sure that you bring more than you need. If you're going to be somewhere remote, you can't just run out to a store if you run out of card space or your battery dies. I do love that many cameras today, like the R50, can be charged with USB. I use my computer power brick to charge up my R50 and don't have to travel with a separate battery charger. And finally, no matter how much or how little gear you bring, fly with it in your carry-on. Camera gear is too delicate and too valuable to put in your checked bag. If you're traveling with someone, divide the load between two carry-ons so neither of you is stuck hauling everything. Okay, so Frank, you wanted me to convince you? Well, I think this is what you need to think about to make the decision. The images you capture with a dedicated camera, especially a full system with great glass, are almost always going to be better. They just are, right? You'll have more detail, you can capture things better in low light, and you're going to have more creative control. And golf specifically has its own set of challenges. If you want to freeze the action of a golf swing, you're going to need faster shutter speeds, probably 1/1000th or 2,000th of a second or even faster. Your phone's shutter just isn't built for that. And on the course, you're dealing with harsh midday sun, which means managing contrast and exposure carefully. A real camera with RAW files is going to give you the tools to handle both of those challenges. Phone photos are great for sharing on social media or texting to friends and family in real time. You'll have no trouble getting a decent snapshot of your buddies in front of the clubhouse. But when was the last time you actually printed a photo from your phone and framed it on your wall? Your R5 is going to give you a series of images that your buddies will actually want to frame. I have my Canon Pro 1100 printer, and I can make some really beautiful prints with it. I've also had high quality prints made by sending the files to a lab like Printique. Even better, you could take a whole bunch of images from your vacation and use Printique to make a beautiful photo book. I know people who make books for every trip they go on, and that's something you'll actually look at and share over the years more than just looking at them on your phone or your computer. I'm going to put a link to the Printique photo books down in the description below so you can check those out. Now, having said all of that, if the people you're traveling with aren't photographers and you don't want the gear to become a source of tension on the trip, that's a completely valid reason to leave it at home or just bring a small camera and lens. Your memories matter more than your memory cards. Now, if you do love travel photography but don't want to do it on vacation, maybe consider building a trip specifically around photography. You could take a workshop or even just put together a group trip with other photographer friends where finding cool locations and making great images is the whole point. There's no apologizing for stopping to get the shot, and no one will be impatiently waiting while you swap lenses. Everyone is there for the same reason you are, and that can be totally fun. So Frank, in my opinion, golf in Monterey is exactly the kind of trip where I'd want to have good gear and long lenses. And I bet your golf buddies are going to love having photos of themselves too, especially if you make Printique photo books for everyone. Bring the R5 and let me know how it goes. So what do you all think? Are you someone who always brings a camera on vacation, or do you leave it at home? Why or why not? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching Adorama TV. I'll see you next time with a new question right here on Ask David Berg.